Well, I think you're right because, this visit was important both for India and Germany in the sense, of course, we do have very solid partnership already. As you mentioned, 25 years of strategic partnership. And we also have solid institutional mechanism to support this partnership. We have intergovernmental consultations every 2 years. The last intergovernmental consultations happened in October 24, where a large number of agreements and joint statements were agreed. And but the geopolitics, as you mentioned, that's really is the key, perhaps. That's why, in fact, even the more emphasis this time was, of course, the economic issues, but also on defense security issues. Because what has really happened is, the German economy was very much integrated with the Chinese economy, and also the major export market is the US. And we also have strong transatlantic partnership. So they were kind of focusing within Asia, China, and within Europe and also in the United States. But the way I think things have evolved in the last few years now, they have major challenge within Europe, particularly with Russia. China, the charm has gone. Of course, it's still a very important partnership economic for them, but they are really trying to diversify to other markets. The US, things are uncertain, particularly after the tariffs by Trump administration, and transatlantic partnership is still under stress. So within that particular context, I think the visit becomes very, very important because they are really trying to find other major partners where they can also have certain convergences, strategic convergences, and they also can diversify somehow their economic relations. So, India, being a democracy, and also shares certain concerns about rising and asserting China, and we have kind of common concerns and common interests within the Indo-Pacific region. So that perhaps also explains why, after the European Union and the United States, I think his first major visit outside Europe was to India. And within Asia, of course, this is the very first country where he visited. That clearly signals that a kind of importance it has given. And similarly for India, I think India, in its own ambitions to become developed economy, Viksit Bharat by 2047. It has clearly identified Europe as a partner for trade, investment, technology, and also for our own green transition. And within Europe, within the European Union, Germany being the largest economy, obviously becomes a very important pillar of this relationship. We have roughly about 200 billion goods and services trade with the European Union, and out of that, about 50 billion is only with Germany. And we also have solid green partnership. We also have, all the our companies have technical and financial collaboration with large number of Europeans and other German companies. So I think within this context, this particular visit was important both for India and also for Germany. And normally, these kind of agreements, the number of agreements, what you mentioned, the outcome of this kind you can see normally in the intergovernmental consultation, which actually would happen by the end of this year in Germany. So even with just a bilateral visit, this kind of outcome of the outcome documents, that really shows that this was very successful visit, and both countries also really looking at each other, looking working with each other in many, many areas. Of course, I mean, diversification of defense procurement is, of course, is always a major, I would say, objective. And the large objective, of course, is modernization of our defense forces and also making India, self-reliance within that. But you do need certain technologies, you do need certain imports, and within that, within That context, I think defense and security also figured very prominently during this visit. Traditionally, our relationship with Germany was mainly trade, economy, technology, and also to some extent, the renewable sector and in the development sector. We are, of course, in negotiations with Germany to purchase submarines, which negotiations are on. Maybe at some point of time they would be concluded. But the focus here was really how do we really collaborate with each other in the defense matter. And it's not just only India is actually building its defense industry. Even within Europe, there is a large emphasis now on building Europeans' own defense capabilities. The way I think the relations are developing between the United States and many European countries. And Trump administration is also pushing more and more European countries to spend more on defense. And Germany, the last 4 years, the economy has been roughly in transition, and they have a huge funding proposals, arrangement which they have done in the 500, 600 billion they are spending, for pushing the growth. And large part of this is also in the defense sector. So they do have technological know-how, but they are also developing in many, many areas defense sector. So when we are talking about working together in the defense and security area, one is you work with any partner in defense and security only when you have certain convergence of broader strategic interests, which broadly we see in the Indo-Pacific and also within India's own neighborhood. They see that there is a convergence of those interests, even if our perceptions about Ukraine war are slightly different than what the Europeans and German perceptions are. But here, the idea is really how they can help India's modernization and Make in India program. Similarly, in many areas, India has its own technologies and its own strength. When Germany is also expanding into many, many areas of defense, so Indian companies can also really kind of partner with many of the German companies as well. So I think this is one area which figured very prominently. Prime Minister also mentioned that we have been working mainly in the economic areas with Germany, but we also need to have a strategic dimension to this. And I think this is one area which were very, very clearly mentioned. It came out very clearly in the joint declaration, and we also have a bilateral defense industrial roadmap cooperation. So I think one can see many things happening in the defense sector in the years to come. Trade is, in fact, since they are part of the European Union, so obviously the competency in the trade and investment is in with the European Union, and we are in under very serious negotiations with the European Union on three different separate agreements: one on trade, one on investment protection, and the third one is on geographical indications. And there is a very strong indication from both sides that when India EU summit is going to take place by the end of this month, there is a reasonable, in fact, very strong possibility that we will be concluding negotiations, or maybe we may be able to sign a trade agreement by then. And Germany, being the largest economy, for many years, Germany has been pushing for trade agreement with India, and since it also has this solid weight within the European institutions, within European institutions, within the EU, it's also pushing for early negotiation or the conclusion of these talks. So we only hope that when the India EU summit takes place, if we are able to conclude trade agreement with the EU, we already have now certain templates are there since we have already finalized our trade agreement with the UK and also with the EFTA countries. And the last few years, we have also signed, many agreements with Australia, New Zealand, UAE. So there is a mood towards this, and now the geopolitics. also is really pushing both the partners to have trade agreements as soon as possible, because as both are also EU has also negotiated bilaterally with the US. India is continue to negotiate with the US. So the multilateral trading system at the moment is in a serious trouble. But both India and Germany, being part of the European Union, they really support a multilateral trading system. And I think this will also signal two major partners, two major economies. Actually, if they are able to sign trade agreement, that will be really helpful for the global trading, the multilateral trading system. So I think this is what they have discussed, and this has been the kind of the core of relationship anyway between India and Germany, and of course the technology and other areas in which we have been working. Well, Indo-Pacific, I think for the, Germany was one of the first countries within the European Union to came out with its own Indo-Pacific strategy. They also came out with its own China strategy. And this is one area where we have been working very closely in the last few years. We feel that there are convergences between India and Germany in the Indo-Pacific. Now, we look at more Indo-Pacific region, more strategic in the sense that we are trying to build certain kind of collaborations, frameworks, platforms to kind of balance the rising and assertive China within the Indo-Pacific. Now, Germany looks at Indo-Pacific slightly differently because their main interests in the region are economic, and they have very significant economic presence in all these areas, and they do consider China also as part of the Indo-Pacific. So they are looking to expand their or protect their interest within the Indo-Pacific. And what they also feel is that all kind of cooperation which is happening between India or within the Quads, they also support that. So I think, and they within I think during this visit they also agreed to have start new dialogue between India on the Indo-Pacific. So this is an area in which we have been working for some time, and I think there are more convergences. Looks like since they have also now a certain, where they are very cautious about China now, and many of their companies are already working in China, but they are also looking for China plus strategy. So they are looking that, through connectivity, through many of the development initiatives, and we are also working with Germany on development sector. Also, not just only Germany is working supporting India's development initiative, particularly in the renewable and the climate sector, but we are also working with Germany in third countries, triangular development cooperation projects in Africa, in Latin America, and there is a strong possibility that we can also work in many of those development projects, particularly in the renewable sector in the Indo-Pacific region. So there are many areas of sustainable development in which I think the Germany has technology. They are keen. They also have resources which they want to share with India, and we can work together in so many areas within the Indo-Pacific. This is what the broader, I think, converse in which they would be working with India in the Indo-Pacific, but their interest is more sustainability and more economic. And India, apart from economic issues, we also look at more the strategic, the Indo-Pacific. But we are trying to work in the Indo-Pacific together. I think this is one area in which we have really done pretty well in the last few years. Germany, because they have the kind of demography they have, they are always looking people from outside, and they feel that Indians have really well integrated into the German society. They are contributing significantly to their industry, their commerce, and in areas where they are working. And since now there is also pressure from some other countries, particularly the United States and other, where the the visa and student mobility is becoming restricted. So Germany is becoming a very important alternative to many of the students and also for mobility. As you mentioned, already we have 60,000 students in Germany. And in 2022, we also signed a migration and mobility agreement with Germany, through which the German government is quite keen to facilitate legal migration in particular areas in which there is a labor shortage in Germany. And Indians, particularly in the healthcare sector, in the ICT sector, they are looking, they are, moving into some of those sectors, and they are integrating also very well and contributing, as I said, into the German economy. And Germany is one country which is really relatively open towards migration, despite the fact that within European Union and in many other European countries, politics is quite different. And even within Germany, you also have, the political parties like Alternative for Germany, which is kind of against immigration. But the reality is that the German government do need, and they are really looking forward to welcome Indian students, and also if they can later on even settle within Germany. So Indian government is also, kind of trying to facilitate some of those migration and mobility, because migration and mobility is an area in which competencies are with the member states. So we are signing those agreements not just only with Germany, we signed with France, we also signed with Italy and with other Denmark and other countries. So this is one area, I think, apart from trade, defense, technology, and green transition, where I think a lot of action is likely to happen in the coming years. And I think both the leaders have clearly identified, and this is also reflected in the joint statement as well.